We are here. Oh, we did it. Hi, everybody. I hope you just watched an old family recipe by VERONICA MANSOUR. We are here in the Regis Philbin Theater. Gabe, can you give us another webcam of all that so we can... Pressure page that we can enable the YouTube comments. So if you have any questions for us, we have our writer and a couple of actors and our seniors in here. If you want to get some of those questions to us, you can write those in the YouTube comments. We have Gabe over here who's producing this, and also James that is working on some stuff behind the scenes. You can get those comments to us. We'll get those to the actors and some of the creators, and we'll go from there. My name is Matt Hawkins. I am the director of musical theater here and the director of An Old Family Recipe. It's my pleasure to say welcome. Thanks for hanging out. Get a little behind the scenes during COVID world. You just watched was it the second screening, I guess? Yeah. It was a rough cut of a show. Our brilliant cinematographer, Bill Donnarumma, did basically 9 months of work in 3 weeks. So you just saw a rough edit, and we're going to work over the summer to keep cleaning things up, work on transitions, audio, sync, things like that. But thank you so much for joining us and being part of this during this really, really insane world. I'm going to throw it over to some of our students who are on the show. Over here on the other side, we have Ronnie Mansour and Sydney Kraft, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Ronnie, who are you, and what did you do?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ronnie Mansour. I'm a senior here at Notre Dame, and I did the book, music, and lyrics for An Old Family Recipe. Sydney?
Hi, I'm Sydney Kraft. I'm a graduating senior this Sunday, scary, and I played Tony in An Old Family Recipe.
Yes, and for those of you who don't know, graduation is this weekend. Congratulations, by the way. Are you all scared?
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay, I wasn't. And then also over here, Gabe, throw that up one more time. We've got some seniors over here. Starting from left to right on camera, we have Allison, who played Dr. Barwick. Hi, Allison. We have Alexa, who was an assistant director on the project, and she has really probably a lot of bad stories about me. We have Shannon as well, who was the choreographer. Then we have Ben over here, who played Travis. And we have Javier on the far right, who was an assistant stage manager, who has all the behind-the-scenes stories that will blow your mind. Right, Javi? That's great. That's great. All right. So we're going to get started. Again, you have the YouTube chat. You can put some questions in there if you have any things for us. We're going to move pretty fast here. Everybody, remember I had a plan? It's not happening because I'm getting tons of questions already. All right. So we're going to start here. I have a parent question. Let's see. Was it always the plan to film the musical, and how did that idea come about? Welcome, COVID 2021. Ronnie, you want to take that? Was this the plan? Was this your idea of how this was supposed to go? And also, what was your original idea? Let's back up. Oh, this is live. This is happening live. You ready? Yeah, what was your original idea? Where did this all come from? What was your plan? And then when did COVID have an opinion about your plan?
Right, so COVID has a lot of opinions, as we all know. So basically, this all started, I think, about 3 years ago, which is kind of crazy to talk about now. But it started out as just an idea. I was talking with Matt about sort of my songwriting and what I kind of wanted to do with that. I'm an English major. I'm a music major. So I've always loved lyrics and book writing as well as writing music and that kind of stuff. So I thought, why not, do something wild and write a musical, and Matt offered his full support and kind of said, I'll be a mentor for you, I'll help you out. And so I wrote basically a short story fiction version of the show. Tony at the time was a man. Sorry, Sid. And there were a lot of different changes. Like Trudy, the male woman, was originally named Fred, also a man. So there were a lot of little things that changed as well as big things. But I always knew that I wanted the show to have a big component surrounding mental health. That's something that's super, super important to me. And I was very interested in having those sort of uncomfortable conversations on stage, and using my art and the gifts I was given to do that for myself, but for others, and have those conversations. So throughout the 3 years, it was a lot of phone calls with Matt. It was a lot of drafting and songwriting, lyric changes and all that. And that sort of led up to the workshop class in the fall, which I know Sydney's going to talk about a little bit. But before COVID hit, we were still going to have this workshop class. We were still going to hopefully do the show my senior year. That was originally the plan. But when COVID hit, I was actually sent home from Italy. I was there in Rome studying and doing lots of research, eating, which I was calling research at the time. But I was sent home, and I thought, I'm just going to go back to Notre Dame. In a couple weeks, it's going to be fine. COVID's not in America, whatever. And of course, it became a pandemic. And so I had conversations with Matt, and we kind of said, we don't know what we're going to do. So we're going to delay things and delay these conversations and still do the thing and workshop the project and keep going, because we're not going to stop the creative juices from flowing, even though the world is kind of feeling like it's put on hold. So we did our best in the workshop class. We were all masked, distanced, to still do the project and block the project. And then Matt and I had to have some hard conversations about, are we going to film this? Is this going to be a movie? And I was originally kind of opposed to it. And I was like, this is a theatrical piece. I want this to be a musical. And then when Hamilton came out, on Disney Plus, that kind of changed the game for me. I know Matt and I had conversations about it. Like, actually, there is a way to kind of put a musical.
Wait,
on
what
stage.
is that true? Disney Plus changed your mind?
Disney Plus did a lot of things for me, but I would say that just like, watching that, and there have been lots of efforts to put musicals as movies, but I think this specifically is unlike anything I ever even imagined that it would be, and that I don't really know still, is this a film, is this a musical, is this a filmed musical, or is this something entirely unique? And I think that we have, Matt Hawkins and Bill Donnarumma and the cast and crew and everybody to thank for kind of creating this sort of weird but really rewarding, unique experience. So Sydney, did you want to talk about the workshop class at all?
Yeah, sure. So in this past fall, we had the workshop class, and that was basically a bunch of students coming together, and Ronnie would bring in new material and new scripts for us to look at, and we would block and read them in class, and it was a way for her to hear the words she had written out loud, and by us finding our characters. And in the workshop class, I played Tony in the workshop class. So I've been with this role for a while now, and that gave me the opportunity to really learn the character and really develop her as a character as well. And there went through so many changes. The ending was different like 5 times, and we had to keep on our feet to try and figure out, okay, which ending feels right. So it was a great process, and it was a way for all of us to really get a chance to see how a musical starts from beginning to end, and how it changes so much and how rewarding it is. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Sid. Ronnie, I got another question. Can you talk a little bit about where the inspiration for the show came from?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit in that, like, mental health is something that's very important to me. But I was also studying Italian here, and Gabe Crut, who's behind the camera right now, we had some early conversations about, how Italian we can make this story. We were just talking about things. And so I guess the inspiration was kind of like putting together all of these pieces that I was really interested in talking about Italy and Italian elements and food and stuff like that, but also telling the story of somebody who's really struggling with anxiety and depression on kind of a day-to-day level, in that, like, having conversations about mental health and like what that looks like in your home and in the workplace, and what those scenes look like with the therapist, and familial relationships and relationships with family and friends and things like that. It's a struggle that I've certainly had, and yeah, I think I was just really interested in having those conversations with my friends, my peers, but also, extending that to the public and saying, what do you think about this? And have you had these struggles? So taking sort of my personal experiences and extending that in a wider direction.
Great. Thanks, Ronnie. I got another question here about the process of assembling the music tracks in terms of vocals and orchestrations. And I'm going to go to one of our seniors real quick. Like, Ben, if I could lean on you, like, what was the process of, because for those of you at home, right, we did a lot of all of our vocal tracks. We laid them down prior to the actual filming, and they basically lip synced themselves. Ben, can you talk about just what that process was like as an actor?
Yeah, sure. So it was pretty unique. It's something I had not done at all before, as is pretty much everything this year. But yeah, because singing provides its own dangers because you're expelling a lot more air, and so it's a lot more dangerous. COVID-wise, we had to lip sync basically everything. And so Ronnie made all these beautiful demos for us. She sang all the parts herself, so we got to listen to her voice, dozens of times. But then we would schedule days where we would go into the studio. We have a studio here at the DeBartolo Performing Arts Center in the basement. And we would go in, and we would put headphones on and listen to the track. And we would FaceTime Ronnie at the same time while she was out in the hallway about 10 feet away, but separated by 2 doors. And she would give us, singing notes, and we would say, okay. And we would hit record, and we would listen to it in our headphones, and we would record. And we'd do that about 4 or 5 times. And once we were satisfied, we were done. And then each time we had to let the recording studio sit for like 20 minutes to air it out, so that everything was safe before the next people came in. And then during the actual performance, we would just hit the record button or hit the play button, and we would lip sync to it. And yeah, it was a very interesting experience.
It was interesting. Thanks, Ben. We also have some B-roll we're going to show real quick, just about speaking of rehearsals. If you look, they're all 6 feet apart. This is pretty much standard for the university. Everybody's apart. If you look here, this is also Dylan going through and spraying everyone's area, disinfecting as far as aerosols go. And then just like, let's pause right there real quick if we could, Gabe. Thank you. So right now what you're going to hear, we're going to turn the volume up if we can, and we'll press play in a second. If you listen to just what Ben was talking about, so this is rehearsal, and if you listen really closely, you'll hear the track, but the vocals are actually Ronnie. So Ronnie, as brilliant as she is, she did all the if you haven't heard, she did the book, lyrics, and music, and that means all the composition. So she laid down all the demos. So in rehearsal, the actors listened and basically spoke along with Ronnie singing. So if you listen really carefully, you're going to hear Ronnie's voice in the background as they rehearse this scene real quick. Go ahead, Gabe. Great, awesome. And then we're going to pause real quick. And now we're going to jump to the actual scene that you guys already saw tonight. And if you look, so when we were filming, right, if you guys, basically singing and or yelling is the worst thing you can do when it comes to spraying aerosols and spraying everyone's spit and virus everywhere. So on set, basically we lip synced to the songs when we took our mask off at the same time. And you can probably see this in some of the shots, and we're working on it editing wise. We basically created an outdoor experience inside. So we had box fans all over the place. So in a second, Gabe's going to roll the clip. And if you look, Claire Ann, who's playing Small Susie down left, you look at her hair, you're going to watch it blowing in the wind because they're massive box fans spraying aerosol. Gabe, go ahead.
Nonsense, because I want to win. Let's figure out who we're working with. And since you asked, I have a preference. Like I always do, it's Carter. I would work with you.
Right there.
Carter,
Look at it.
And
there it is.
I'm even asking. Of course we're a team. Okay, honey, so we can get to work right away. Should we work back at my place or yours?
Awesome.
Tanya,
yeah. So that's the kind of work we had to do for the entire show, right? So double mask the entire process, temperature checks. We brought in a professor, a biomolecular engineer named Mark McCready, who did an aerosol test for us to help us understand where does smoke go in this theater. And if I didn't say up front, where we are right now in our talkback is where we actually filmed the show. Next question I got is is it true that everyone recorded their vocal parts individually? I believe the answer is yes, right? Ronnie, do you have any thoughts or
Yes.
to expand on that?
Unfortunately, that is the truth. And I think it sounds really good, but from the standpoint of a music director, it was absolutely crazy because not only did everyone have to record individually, but we're not allowed to sing inside on campus. So I had vocal one-on-ones with every member of the cast several times a week over Zoom. And so we would work on our harmony parts. I would record my own voice, send them their part. We would go over it. And then I would send them individually into the studio. And as you've heard, some of these family numbers are about 7-part harmony stuff. And so these poor people are going into the recording studio and recording with my voice in their ear so that they're hopefully exactly with me, so that when they do lip sync, it's exactly right, exactly with themselves, with me, with them, something like that. But with the help of our sound engineer, Killian Vitterick, and myself, we were able to kind of mix it into a place that hopefully sounds as if they were all recording together as a group, but it's always a challenge when we're trying to do group sounds with everybody going in individually. So. Great.
Ronnie, I'm going to come back to you with another question.
Oh, good.
Did you choose Monroeville intentionally? Parenthetically, and hear me, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm just reading off a Google, is Monroeville also where Harper Lee and Truman Capote are from? Is that true? Do we know that to be true? Anybody? Seniors?
Oh.
Aren't you smart graduating seniors from Notre Dame?
I should know that.
Yeah, why the location?
I picked Monroeville because I did some online research about like different suburbs because I was hoping to find sort of, I don't want to offend anyone in Monroeville. I was trying to find a little bit of a small suburb that maybe was a little bit grayer, a little bit mundane, where Tony would live. And my good friend Luke is actually from Pittsburgh. And when he heard about that Monroeville was where it was going, he was like, how did you know that that's exactly what I think Monroeville is? So I don't know if that's really true, but my online research sort of led me there. And I'll have to do research about Harper Lee. I'm not really sure what the answer is to that question.
Great. I have a really great question. I'm not going to assume who this is from, but it says, and actually, Javier, I'm going to make you answer this, and you may not know the answer at all. I think this could be a really fun experiment to put you up there. The question is, did Gabe, our producer, did Gabe, who played Robert, the boss in the office scenes, did Gabe get to keep all the photos of himself? Javier, who was on crew, and actually, Javier, now that you're up there, can you talk a little bit about like what your role was and your title, and because people who have been watching may not recognize your face, but you had a lot to do with this project. So talk about yourself, and did Gabe keep all the photos?
So first of all, hi everyone. I'm Javier Rivera Gonzalez. I'm a long story, technically not graduating, but also kind of walking. It's a long story. But anyways, I was the the assistant stage manager, one of them, along with my very good friend and extremely helpful other assistant stage manager, Malia Bissa, and under the direction of Dylan Parent. I hope they're both watching. Thank you very much. You're both amazing. Anyways, what I did along with Malia was if you saw any props, if you saw absolutely anything on set, we put it there. The food that Tony was cooking during cook time, that was us. All the pencils, that was us. During rehearsals, we were in charge of taking down blocking at the beginning and then line notes later on to give to the actors just so they would be precisely on book. Dylan always stressed they had to be book perfect. So yeah, it was basically a lot of behind the scenes work to make sure that everything was going on correctly. It was very exciting. I actually auditioned for the role of what is now Trudy, but Fred, and honestly, I'm kind of glad I didn't get it because I had a lot of fun as an ASM, and I learned a lot. We were also there filming every single time for every single filming day, so I saw the show 5 times every day as like the same scene 5 times, and I was also in charge of the clapper, which was really fun. I didn't get to yell action. That's Matt's job. But anyways, I digress. If I recall correctly, Gabe only got to keep the big painting behind himself. Is that correct, Gabe?
Unfortunately, no.
What?
I have the Napoleon.
Oh, the Napoleon. Okay, he has the big Napoleon sign that, if I recall correctly, hung on the right behind where Kate's at. But yeah, cool.
Great, thanks, Javier. And for those of you who aren't that familiar with theater, the backstage crew are the ones that don't get any glory, and it would not happen without them. So, Dylan, if you're in New York, hello, and thank you for your work.
We love you, Dylan.
You did get the cameo at the end, though.
That is, yeah, that's true. And if you did notice in the funeral scene at the very end, Javier as well as Malia, our other ASM, as well as Ronnie, made a little cameo appearance as bystanders in the funeral under the umbrellas. But in all honesty, Javier and Malia and Dylan were essential to the entire project, and we are very grateful and blessed for their work ethic and their commitment. So, Javier, I don't think I've ever said that to you. Am I being nice all of a sudden? Oh, I could be nice once in a while, Ben Price. And what? This is recorded. Gabe, let's delete this. But Javier, honestly, thank you for that. And Dylan and Malia, thank you as well. I got another great question. This has to do with Kathleen. I got it from YouTube. For the dialogue of the therapist, did we consult any psychology experts and resources? Before we go to the dialogue, I'd love to, if we could, Allison, go to you and kind of talk to you about your relationship with this character and any sort of research that you might have done for this role.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everyone, I'm Allison. I played Dr. Barwick. I am a graduating senior, and yeah, that's terrifying. But with Jen, so we consulted a woman named Jen who works for the University Counseling Center here at Notre Dame. And Ronnie had been in touch and Matt had been in touch with Jen well before into the workshop process and everything like that. But I had the great privilege of talking to Jen myself for, almost 2 hours over Zoom about the character of Dr. Barwick. Fun fact, my mom is a therapist, and Ronnie's mom is also a therapist.
You're here.
So we definitely had some knowledge going into it, but Jen opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me. As Ronnie mentioned, mental health it's such an interesting conversation. I mean, especially in the COVID world of things to have nowadays. But I think a lot of the shows we see on Broadway, because Ronnie's original intention was for this to be a theatrical production, usually deal with the extreme of mental health. And so I think getting to talk to Jen about the everydayness of things that people go through with it, just anxiety, and it's waking up in the morning and putting on the wrong shirt or something as simple as that. And talking to her, I was able to apply so much to not only the character of Dr. Barwick, but to my own life and like to what when I interact with friends and things like that. So we definitely spoke to someone. Jen was an incredible resource to me, to the production. She came into the workshop class and we had a whole day dedicated to the conversation of mental health specifically related to Tony's character. So it was a great experience.
Great. Thank you, Allison. I got another question. Actually, someone texted me this. Thank you for texting me. I should turn my phone off. It had to do with COVID and the physical interaction, specifically when it comes to some of the dancing and or movement. And I was wondering, I'm going to throw it back over to our choreographer at the show, just what your process was from a creative standpoint, but also from a logistics standpoint.
Yeah, hi, I'm Shannon. I'm the choreographer. It's kind of an oxymoron to choreograph something where people have to touch and have it socially distant. So for most of the process, I didn't actually know how I was going to be able to do what we did. I had conversations with Matt starting back in November about doing the choreography, and we looked at all these basketball games and sports that were happening, and they were touching and they weren't wearing masks. So like we were trying to figure out how they did that. So we kind of took some inspiration from the sports world for the arts, which is nearly unheard of, and we made our own COVID playbook, and I did tons and tons of research based on things that TV sets and movie sets were doing, and also things that our own basketball team was doing, and figuring out how we could do what we wanted to do for the show in the best and safest way possible. So I used some buffer actors who had previously had COVID, taking advantage of the antibodies when I was doing blocking. And then making sure that we had a safe environment within it allowed me to be able to do the choreography that we had. You can't have a touchy-feely Italian family standing 6 feet apart away from each other. So being able to create that environment allowed us to do something that was truly beautiful, especially for that waltz with Maybe Not. I was picturing that it was going to have to be some Maria and Tony moment in West Side Story across the room and play that up for a whole minute. But I'm really, really grateful that they were able to have that beautiful dance and that beautiful, beautiful moment together.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. I got a question now. Alexa, I'm going to come to you. So you're our assistant director. I got a question that's about what was the process of creating the Eenie song? If you guys know, it's in Act 2, the family. It's all about all the different types of pasta. And the question is, how was it developed from initial concept to its completion? And I'm listening to Alexa because she was part of the lab class and really, with her and James, really spearheaded those choices. Alexa, you want to talk a little bit about the development and process of the Eenie song?
Yes. Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm one of the assistant directors with the wonderful James, who is back behind the camera over there. And he says hi. But yeah, so personally for me, like I come from a big East Coast Italian family, so I drew on a lot of that for what I felt like the family scene should kind of be about, of being loud, chaotic, tons of love, tons of just up in each other's business, all of that, and adding in the love language of food. So I think from the class, we kind of knew that we wanted food to be the main part, but it was food as a love language and food as the family bringing Tony into their family officially. So we had kind of talked a little bit about, like, is it a cooking show? Is she watching them? Is she a part of the audience? And it kind of just like merged into this, what you saw, a chaotic dance number that was cooking, it was drinking, it was dancing, it was, you know, bombastic, it was extra Italian slang words, and it just became about drawing Tony in. And you see during Eni's song, at first she is terrified, and Sid, you were great at being terrified, and by the end she is dancing and laughing along with them, and it was just exactly what an Italian family should be, of bringing everyone in and just feeling that love.
Great. Thanks, Alexa. One of the nice things about our New Works program here in the lab is a lot of our students are able to take on leadership roles so that we get to work side by side in creating that. And Alexa and also James behind the camera took a lot of responsibility with this show. I had my hands full with a lot of other stuff in production and camera, and Alexa and James, without a doubt, share a lot of the credit specifically for the Italian family and their presence. I got a great question for Sydney. Sydney, it is, I will read it verbatim. You ready? Okay. Question for Sydney, Dash. With such an emotional, demanding role, how did you navigate getting into character every day when the process was so choppy and out of order in terms of filming?
Yeah, so when we filmed this, we didn't film it in order. I think the last time we got a full, complete run-in was November was the last time, or we had another run when we came back in February as well with the cast, and that was the last time that I was able to track the emotion from the beginning to the end. And I remember going into that rehearsal thinking, okay, I need to make sure to remember how I feel in each scene and each moment, so that when I came in and filmed a certain scene, I thought about that. I thought about the show leading up to it and what built off of that. And Tony as a character is someone I can relate to a lot. So it was a lot of me just thinking about my own experiences and thinking about my own mental health and putting this into this character. And then there were some days where I think one of the last days of filming, we recorded the first song and the funeral in the same day. So it was having to go from that song to that song and remembering what happened right before it and remembering the moments to moment and kind of just going for it and seeing that help. But it was a very emotionally demanding role, but I think it was so worth it, and I learned so much from it doing it. Yeah.
Great. And also, if there are actors out there who have gone from mediums from theater to film, those are tough. Those are hard transitions. I will say, like Sydney, I think I said this to you in our like MT capstone meeting, right? Like Sid can, without a doubt, handle basically anything that's thrown at her. And every day things changed, blocking changed, so many things changed, and she handled it like a champ. So I just want to like applaud you for that, because that's pretty impressive. I know I work with a lot of adults who complain about everything, and you did not, and you were awesome. So I appreciate that. I got a question, Ronnie. I'm gonna throw this to you. This has to do with a therapist. It says, quote, does the towards and away strategy come from actual therapists treating patients with anxiety?
Yes, actually, yes. So my mom, as Allison mentioned, is a therapist, and a lot of her research and where she likes to specialize and what she likes to learn about is something called acceptance and commitment therapy. A lot of people refer to it as ACT, and that's something also that Dr. Hames, when she came in and helped us out, she said, this is ACT, isn't it? And I said, oh, good, you can recognize that, because that was really what I was interested in writing about. It's been a huge tool for me in my own life, but the choice point, what Dr. Barwick is talking about in that scene with the towards and away moves is basically like, if not the crux, but one of the biggest parts of what ACT is. So yes, that's definitely legitimate. It's definitely a branch of therapy, and definitely a tactic that a lot of therapists use to reach clients with anxiety and depression. And I know that Dr. Hames talked to us a little bit about the clients that's most helpful with reaching are those that get really stuck in their heads, and have a really tough time with thought stopping or with telling themselves that that's not rational or whatever that might be, and need to put their bodies into action and do something. So by talking about towards moves, away moves, by talking about the things that you actually do, help somebody like Tony, who gets stuck in the club basically, or the world in which people are talking badly about her and she can't do it within her own mind. So it becomes more of an action thing. And so yeah, that's kind of where ACT comes in, and it's definitely been helpful for me.
Great. Thanks, Ronnie. A couple questions. We'll wrap up here in the next 5 minutes. A lot of questions I'm getting, I'm just going to put them into one, is basically the collaboration between film and television and theater, as well as what was the conceit and what was our angle of attack of how to film this, right? So basically, Bill Donnarumma and I, who was a cinematographer, we had to try to figure out like what is our point of view, like where are the cameras, and obviously it's still a rough edit. We're still trying to figure it out. But after, as Ronnie said, Disney Plus, which is a huge influence with her apparently.
And you, don't lie.
And me. Fair. I did. What? Thanks. I also watched all the Marvel films in order, whatever. Oh, Sid, so did you, right? May the 4th be with you.
Oh, thank you so
Inside
much.
joke. Okay, we're digressing. Let me stay on track. So I did a lot of research. I tried to figure out like what, Ronnie's big thing was like this is a theatrical musical, right? We're not doing a film musical. It's not realism. What is theatrical? And I had to like in a really great way try to figure out what does that actually mean? What does theatrical mean? And so you start watching, Disney Plus, and you watch Hamilton, and I actually watched a lot of comedy specials on Netflix to try to figure out what does theatrical mean. At first I thought, let's look at the lights. Let's show the lights burning in the back. Like, that's theatrical. Like, no, it's also, it's the audience's point of view and physical relationship to the stage and the actors. And that's when I figured out that, it's actually, if you watch all the Disney Plus and the Hamilton and the comedy Netflix specials, the camera angles are from an audience's point of view, like literally geographically in the theater. And even though we're in the Philbin and we don't have an audience, I was like, that's what I need to do. Part of theatricality is that physical space and relationship. So I thought, I know what we need to do. Even though we don't have an audience, we don't have seating, we don't have people in here, we need to pretend that we do. So as you watch the show, we basically have 3 main locations, right? We have our apartment, our workplace, and our therapist office. And I created all 3 of them as if it was a proscenium theater. So we figured out on the floor, where's the first row for the apartment, where's the 5th row for the apartment. What I mean by that is, where is the 1st and 5th row physically relationship to the stage, but also in height, right? So if you think about if you're in a theater, if you're on the 5th row, it's on a rake stage, you're a little higher. So we literally, I put a chair down and I sat down and said, okay, if I'm in the 1st row, this is where my eyesight is, right? This is where my eye line is. And so then Bill came in and we put a track down, we put a camera down, said this is where I would be if I was on the 5th row, and we did the math. Okay, 5th row, this is how high risers are, this is how high we'd go up vertically, and then we basically changed. So we knew every scene we filmed 1st row, 5th row, and then we have box seats, right? Sometimes we have like what we call a camera B, whereas in box seats, and we had a couple of mezzanine shots, right? Which we just made up. We had someone go up on a ladder and film there. So we basically figured out how to recreate the theatrical experience of an audience watching these shows that are proscenium. And then obviously when we go to some of the club scenes, which we made up last second, for sure, last second, that had kind of a different conceit, right? That's when we stripped the theater bare and we did handheld. We were one shots, and we felt that actually supported the psychological and emotional space of the lead actor. So that was the idea design behind the set, is to behind the film, is to create an audience experience as if you were in there, because that's what we're trained to. And then another question I got, I'll roll through these real quick. I know we're running out of time. As I'm vamping and going through these, yell at me, people, or raise your hand if you have something to say. There's a question about, are we going to intermix this in the future? I don't know, but I hope so. The silver lining of COVID is that I got to work with our faculty over in film television, which we haven't been doing, and we are as a department together. Huge benefit, without a doubt. So I was very grateful to work with film and television faculty to do this. Let's see. Should I just read this without even reading it and vetting it? Sure, why not? With this show, y'all were able to do what even many professional companies have been unable to do for the last 15 months. What has pivoting this year taught you about creativity and the theatrical profession? I've talked for 3 minutes. I don't want to hear myself talk anymore. Who would like to talk about what is it like to pivot? And what have you learned about creativity and the theatrical profession? Alexa, standing up. Let's go to the seniors.
I think it just taught us how valuable it is to be flexible, because like some people have mentioned, things were changing on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour, mid-shooting, mid-filming, mid-rehearsal basis. So the easiest way to go about it was just by being flexible and understanding that your first idea or the original idea might just not be what happens. And you have to understand that you just got to keep moving on and keep thinking and keep brainstorming of what will work. And, if you have to be 6 feet apart for an Italian family, what can you do about that? Or if you have to figure out how to film a kiss in COVID time, you have to figure out how to be creative about that. So just being flexible. And I think everyone on the team was incredibly flexible, which made it super easy, but we just learned the valuableness of that.
Thank you, Alexa. That's very well put.
Thank you. I do that sometimes.
You're so articulate at some points. It's amazing. I'll just wrap this up and then what? What? Ronnie's giving me faces. I just want to talk about real quick. Someone asked about talking about the scenic setup during Barwick's song in Act 2, and Ronnie and I talked about that a lot. During that time, it's called The Signs, and it's all about look to the signs that is in your life and what is going on. And we thought that was a great opportunity to show everything in Tony's life at that moment, which is why we decided to film it in that way, to show like everything is happening in that moment and you see it all in one place, which is why we showed that. There was that question, Alexa just talked about it with how did you kiss during COVID? Great question. Well, I'm going to censor myself. I'm not going to finish that sentence. We had very, very, very stringent protocols when it came to our COVID. In addition to all the fans and the temperature checks, the university has a really intense contact tracing policy, and we had our own internally, and we worked with our 2 actors specifically about that. Like, we knew when their testing was. Our university had the resources to be able to allow our students to be tested every single week along with the faculty, so we really lined that up with like, when are you tested, what is your social and your educational experience between your tested and kissing. And we actually, Sid, do you want to, let's give one to Sid, and then Ronnie, I got one more question for you about your inspiration, and then we'll probably wrap it up. But Sid, do you want to talk about that day of what we call the dreaded kiss? Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So the dreaded kiss scene was saved for the last day of filming. And basically the whole time we had been talking about it, there were some crazy ideas being thrown around in the workshop of how it was going to happen, whether we use roommates with wigs on or like how does that happen.
Mannequins.
But yes, mannequins was an option as well. But once it came to it, like Matt had mentioned about the COVID testing policy, Tommy, who played Carter in the show, we had both been tested recently, both came back negative. And when it came time to it, the craziest part was when you're filming something, you have to rehearse with the shot. So we rehearsed it one time with wearing masks and kissing, which was an interesting process to say the least. But then once we actually did it, it was very quick. We made sure to have masks on until the last second. Fans were blowing, but having that extra like negative test beforehand. And then we were both tested the following week, and we both came back negative. So something was working during the process of that. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I'm really proud to say that we had 0 viral transmissions while we were in rehearsal and production. And we did have certain students test positive, but they were outside our process. And I was excited to say that even though we had students like outside our process test positive, we were able to lock our things down, continue with filming, and not have any sort of spread whatsoever. And I do want to thank our Notre Dame General Counsel, Marianne Kaur, as well as Rob Hunt over in athletics, who, as Shannon mentioned before, like the mindset of how in which to still do the thing and put mechanisms around it to allow us to do the thing. So I'm really proud that we had 0 viral transmissions through that, and for Mark McCready as well for his help. Last thing, and we're going to wrap up. Ronnie, can you talk a little bit about inspiration? Everyone wants to know. Inspirations for lyrics, music. How do you write it? Where does it come from? Who's your inspiration? Music, lyrics first. What happens, right? Do you let the story guide you? Songs, vice versa? Go.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, and I don't have like a super straight answer for that. I think because I was doing the book, the music, and the lyrics, it was easy to let them guide each other. For instance, like when I first wrote I'm Happier Than You, I had the concept for the song, but it didn't really have a place in the show. And I remember having a conversation with Matt where he said, I love it, but it doesn't sound like anything else that you wrote for the show. Like, it's so jazzy, it's so different, but it sounds sort of like a different show. And we were able to carve out a niche for that and the 2 reprises because it was a different world. So it was kind of like just shaping all that together. I'll often like wake up in the middle of the night with a lyric idea or a melody idea and pull out my phone next to me and very sleepily record it into my voice memo so that the next day, I come to the piano with the voice memo, I record everything all the time, like just hours of sitting at the piano and just going over things, and something will happen. I'll say, oh, that's it. And then I can't remember it a minute later. So I'll just have to rewind. And if I don't record it, I won't remember. So I think it was just a matter of, finding my voice in the book writing, in the writing of the lyrics, but also in the music, and trying to find some sort of cohesiveness in all of that. And that was definitely a challenge for me, but because they all kind of informed each other, it became easier as the process went on. For instance, like Happier Than You Reprise 2, I think was the last one that I wrote, and it was the easiest to write because I knew what I wanted Carter to say because I knew Carter, and I knew what I wanted that to sound like because I knew what those other songs sound like. So as it went on, I think it got easier.
Well, you can all tell that I'm hanging out with smarter people than I am, which I'm very thankful for. We're going to wrap up here. I also just want to say, for those of you who are in the business and the industry, what you just saw was not a small thing. Huge feat. Impossible. And we actually did it. And on top of that, we also have talent. We have drive. There's work ethic. There's things that need to be said. And we have a brilliant artist in VERONICA MANSOUR who's able to say those things through. I also, again, remember, book, lyric, and music by Ronnie. I just want to point that out again. It's not a small thing, and what Bill Donorama did, not a small thing. We're going to continue working on this. We're going to keep editing, and in a couple of months we'll have even a tighter version of the production, which we hope to share with everybody. And again, I know I keep harping on this, but we cannot take this for granted for what just happened here during this year, during this university. The setting that we have here, they gave us the support and the resources to do this, and we did it, and I'm really, really proud of it. And also for you educators out there, it is also rare that you get to work with your seniors and feel like they are your peers, and that happened on this project. So thank you to all you jerks over there. Yes, that's my love-hate relationship with all my seniors. Oh, are you kind of clapping? Are you kind of clapping? Oh, you're snapping. Oh, that's the cool thing now? Great. So thanks everybody for watching. We're going to keep this link up for another 24 hours. So if you're just getting on now and you haven't seen it, you can scroll back and watch it. We'll have the talk back up there. And then after 24 hours, we'll probably take it down. We're going to kind of go back into our lab and do some more editing and make things a little more polished. And we'll get that back out there again. If you have any more questions, you can go on the Notre Dame website over to FTT, look me up, send me an email, and I can get that out to any sort of students or actors that you need. And I think that's it. Oh, thanks to my mom for sending us cookies. And because, she's a mom, she sent me a cutting board. And in my family, we're not Italian. And in my family, we chocolate chip cookies are a big thing. And that's our family recipe. And you won't even be able to see it. You won't be able to see it. I could do this. You can barely see it, but she engraved on this entire cutting board the old family recipe for our people, our chocolate cookies. So Nancy in Georgia, thanks for that. Anything else? Are we done? Thank you. Anything else? Gabe, anything else? Happy graduation.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Let's say goodbye, everybody. Thanks, everybody.